The product in this video was supplied free of charge for review by Hollyland Technology. They have not paid for this video to be made, nor given any other form of payment, and they have no say whatsoever over the content and conclusions. This is the Hollyland Lark M1 dual wireless microphone. It's a tiny rechargeable system which gives you two separate channels of audio back to a single receiver. Each transmitter is itself a microphone, with a clip to pin it to a person's clothes. Both mics are supplied with a furry windjammer, which just pushes on top, held in place by friction. The transmitters really are small. Here's one next to a 50p piece for comparison. And here it is next to a Rode Wireless Go, probably the market leader and certainly the obvious competitor to this unit. The mics are light too, weighing in at 12 grams versus the Rode's 32. The M1 receiver is also minute. Again, here it is side by side with Rode's equivalent. There are many neat features about the M1 microphones, not least of which is this charging case they come in. Just slot the devices into the case and it charges them up through metal contacts on their bases. The case, containing its own battery, is itself recharged when needed via a USB-C connection underneath. 4 tiny blue lights on the front of the box indicate its state of charge, and further lights let you know when the transmitters and receiver are being charged. Since the charging box isn't big enough for the cables and windjammers, a slightly larger zipped hardshell carrying case is also part of the package to transport the gear around in. Setting up the mics is ridiculously simple. Indeed, there's nothing to actually do. As soon as you remove them from the charging case, they switch on automatically and connect themselves up. You just need to plug the receiver into your camcorder and you're ready to go. Output from the receiver is through a 3.5mm stereo jack, which can go into a similar input on a camcorder, or to a phone with a TRRS type jack, or even via a 3.5mm to Lightning or USB cable, though those were not supplied in the version I was sent. Controls are basic. On the transmitter you have a manual on-off button, just hold it down and it'll switch on or off. And there's a yellow button which can either manually reconnect to the transmitter or will invoke a noise reduction scheme intended to isolate the speaker's voice from background sounds. The mics have their own USB-C charging port on the base if you don't want to or can't use the charging box. A blue LED flashes when the unit is trying to connect to the receiver and stays lit when it is. If you've switched on the noise cancelling, the LED lights in green instead. The receiver has 2 similar lights showing the connection status to the 2 transmitters. It too can be charged by USB-C, has a power button on the side, and a clip which will slide into a standard camera cold shoe. 2 buttons on the side are used either to reconnect the devices if for some reason they haven't done so automatically, or to switch the output from separate mono tracks sent as a stereo pair to a mixed mono track over both sides of the stereo output. The buttons also adjust the output signal level in 3 stages: low, medium and high. The manual offers some suggestions for recording levels on various cameras, but it's best to do your own experiments and find what works best for your setup. You don't get any sort of audio metering, or indeed a display other than the LED lights, which for some people will be a huge no, but for others the simplicity is a relief. That's the overview and functionality dealt with, but crucially of course, how do they sound? Well, I'm pleased to say they're actually very good. It would have been disappointing if they were feature-rich but sound poor. For a start, the entire voiceover you've been hearing for this video was recorded on the M1, feeding into a Sony AX53 camcorder, which I've always found to have excellent audio preamps for a consumer-grade piece of kit. And as I'm speaking to you now, it's also coming from the M1 and into a Sony ZV-1. You will inevitably ask how it compares to the Rode Wireless Go, so let's do a direct comparison.
I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills,
when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The other sound issue that never seems to get much coverage in reviews but drives me up the wall is self-noise, the electrical hum and hiss you get from electronics even when they're not doing anything. So first of all, here's the camcorder with the receiver turned off. In other words, just the camcorder's own self-noise. Now let's add the receiver turned on going into the camcorder, but with both the transmitters still switched off, so you'll hear the receiver's self-noise into the camcorder. And now I'll switch on the transmitters, but put them in as noiseless an environment as possible, this vacuum flask, so we can hear what their self-noise level is. And now here are those samples again, all run one after the other. Bear in mind that what you're listening on will have added its own noise to those samples, so if you've got a poor sound card, headphones or loudspeakers, it'll sound worse than it actually is. The other popular test for wireless mics is range, and the M1 is rated for 40 metres of what Hollyland call free movement, or 200 metres in a direct line of sight to the transmitter. Personally, I've never actually used a long range with one of these. I'm usually just doing a piece to camera a few metres away, or interviewing someone for whom it's simpler to stick on a wireless mic than faff around with cables. The chances of me needing to film someone talking 200 metres away are very small, but if you want to use this in a theatre or auditorium for presentations and the like, the distance will be relevant. Welcome to the top of the Malvern Hills. I'm about to walk in that general direction for 200 metres-ish and then walk back, and you can hear whether the microphone continues to work or not. Well, I don't actually know if this is 200 metres or not, and I'm going to start walking back and hopefully got a good strong signal on the microphone. It's a direct line of sight. The sun is slightly in my eyes, and of course I just need to keep talking about anything. It doesn't really matter what. The key thing is that there should be some sound, that if there is a connection between the microphone and the receiver, then you will hear it, or you will hear it dropping out. And obviously I am now somewhat panting because firstly I just ran to the starting point, jogged, and then secondly I have walked up a hill to get here, so being massively unfit I'm already out of breath. But I shall continue to natter on about anything really, all and sundry, see if any of it's being recorded when I get back and look at the footage. Do you know, there was almost nobody up on this hill when I started filming, and now suddenly as I look I can see hordes of people descending on where the camera is, which is always the way. Normally one gets an aeroplane at this point as well, so perhaps there'll be one of those across in a minute. Right, I'm definitely within scope of what I hope would be an acceptable transmission range now. Notice that the microphone is on my front and I'm facing the camera, so it is a completely unobstructed line of sight, which means that it should be very audible indeed, hopefully with no dropouts or other unwanted disturbances. There's nothing electrical up here that would cause any bother other than perhaps my phone in my pocket. And finally, here I am back at the camera. Now let's do a test of how good the included wind jammers are. For this I'm going to wear both microphones, one with the wind jammer on it and one without, and I'm going to point a fan at me while I'm talking. And I'll turn around a bit so as to make sure there's no bias between the positioning of the two microphones, and we'll see how good it is, and just cut between the two mics as the fan blows air at me. Actually, I've just swapped the mics round, so they're pointing directly at the fan to make it the worst possible environment for them. There it is, it's on full speed, number 3 out of 3, the wind blowing directly from the fan onto the very top of the microphones, one with the wind jammer on it and one with no wind jammer at all. Now if you think that's a little bit unfair, I will just go head on to the wind. So now the microphones are pointing that way and the wind is coming at them from the side. So I'll continue talking. I will say, Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. But how did Mary and the lamb fare when there was a hurricane blowing at them? Well, perhaps this wind test will find out. The final test is the included noise reduction. You switch it on by pressing and holding the yellow button on either transmitter, and it switches it on for both, it seems. In order to test a noise cancelling system, I needed to come somewhere noisy. So I'm currently standing on a footbridge over a dual carriageway. 2 lanes of traffic going that way, 2 lanes of traffic going that way. It is quite noisy and also occasionally quite breezy. Now at the moment the noise cancelling system is off. So this is what I sound like with no noise cancelling at all. And this is what it sounds like with the noise cancellation system turned on. All you do is press the yellow button, it instantly turns on, the light goes green so you know it's working, and the noise cancellation is active. But has it made an audible difference? Well, comparing the two back to back should give us the answer. I tell you what, I'll turn it back off again so you can have a listen to that once more. Just press the button. Noise cancellation is now off and we're back to the original situation. Obviously hoping that the noise cancellation when active is removing the background noise but not changing my voice too much. Some conclusions then. I like this, and that's honestly not because they sent it to me, but because it's tiny, light, incredibly easy to use, it sounds good and it isn't expensive, retailing at about £150 versus £250 for the Wireless Go 2. Now that said, you don't get the useful little screen that the Rode has on the receiver, and it doesn't offer inbuilt backup recording, which is massively useful if the wireless drops out for any reason and you'll be editing the footage later. But of course if you're broadcasting or streaming live, backup recording isn't so relevant, so it's horses for courses really. If you're doing wedding or corporate videos where you absolutely must have the audio, the Rode wins for having that recording feature. But if you can afford to retake shots if for some reason the wireless drops out, then the Hollyland is a low cost and good quality choice, I think. Thanks for watching. Cheerio.